At the start of the season, he was widely considered to be the #1 prospect for the 2024 draft, but now he could be the perfect fit for the Raptors if they keep their top 6 picks. So, in today's video, we're going to break down everything you need to know about Ron Holland to decide if he is a good choice for Toronto. Let's get into it. Even though his draft stock has fallen from being the #1 player heading into this season, Ron Holland remains as one of the top prospects for the 2024 NBA entry draft, and if the Raptors do get that lottery luck, they will have an opportunity likely to select him in the top 6 of the draft. So what we're going to do over the course of the video is we're going to give you every bit of information that you need to know about Ron Holland. We're going to go through his draft profile, talk about what he did in his most recent season with the G League Ignite. Then we're going to go through his strengths, his weaknesses, and to finish off, we're going to go to a player comparable to get a better sense of what he might look like in the NBA. And for Raptors fans, this is definitely one of the more exciting player comparables that we have for you to see. So make sure you stick around to the end of the video where I'll decide if he's a good fit for the Toronto Raptors to draft. So to get things started here, who is Ron Holland? Well, he's an extremely young player who just finished off his season with the G League Ignite and what will actually be the final ever G League Ignite season, unfortunately. But for Ron Holland, he's young. This is a great sign for the player. He's not even going to be 19 years old when the NBA draft rolls around, and he has good size. He's 6'8" with a 6'11" wingspan, can play as either the power forward, but can also play as the small forward for his team. A lot of times for the G League Ignite this season, he also played a bit of point forward. Handled the ball a lot, initiated the offense a lot, but we'll get a little bit more into that as we go throughout the video. But what did he accomplish with the G League Ignite this season? It wasn't a good season for the G League Ignite. That's part of the reason why it's disbanding. It is no longer going to exist, but it was a pretty productive season as far as the scoring is concerned, and a lot of these statistics are concerned. Ron Holland averaged just under 20 points per game this season, 6.7 rebounds, and also added in over 2 steals per game. He averaged over 3 stocks per game by adding in just under 1 block per game over the course of the season. Also chipped in with 3 assists per game, but I felt like the steals were something I wanted to highlight a bit more with the graphic here. As far as the efficiency is concerned, perhaps a little bit to be desired here. A 46% field goal percentage, a 24% three-point percentage, which gives a not so nice effective field goal percentage of 48.6. Certainly when it comes to the statistical categories based on volume, based on totals, we have some good numbers here. It's those efficiency numbers that we're going to have to touch on a little bit later to see if those will be able to climb as far as the NBA is concerned. But there certainly was a lot to be impressed with about Ron Holland after all. You know, he's a highly touted prospect here. May not be the strongest of draft classes, but it still is for very good reason here as we shift into his strengths. Biggest strength about him: he's super athletic and he's got good size. Not like super eye-popping, unbelievable size here, but he's 6'8", has a 6'11" wingspan. That is pretty good for the position there and brings a good level of bounce, good level of athleticism to that as well. The biggest strength that he possesses as a player on the offensive end is his driving and his slashing. The straight line drives, getting himself to the rim. He's a good finisher in those positions. That is definitely where he is going to get the bulk of his offensive sets. Also, as a bit of a transition merchant. Great in the open floor, great in transition, whether he's the one receiving passes, receiving the outlet ball, or getting things started there. In the open floor, his handling is pretty good. It's not one of his key strengths here that I've highlighted, but he has decent handling, especially for his size, and can be menacing if you can get out quickly as an offensive team. Part of the reason for that is that he's tapping into his energy and his motor. This is something that he brings all over the floor, whether it is on offense, whether it is on defense, always active, always moving, alongside with the athleticism being the way it is, being as good as it is. This is a good trait to have for Ron Holland and continuing to be effective, even when maybe some of the talent can let him down efficiency-wise, or perhaps maybe some of the talent does let him down in terms of the decision-making, but again, we'll get to that a little bit later on in the video. Going further down with some strengths, though, defensively, because he's super active, because he's big, got good size, because he's athletic, he can definitely be a defensive pest on ball. He's difficult to go through, holds his positioning very well, and on top of having all these great traits associated: size, athleticism, energy levels, he trends upwards as somebody who can be extremely switchable and versatile on the defensive end, which is something that the Raptors and their front office have typically liked over the years. here. Final thing to look at for his strengths here is his upward trajectory. If the efficiency can start to clean up, there are so many good traits already for the player at under 19 years old on draft day to say that there is a good way for this player to continue to improve, continue to grow, and be very effective at the NBA level. But I've already highlighted on some of them, but we do need to go into the weaknesses for the player. There certainly are some things that we have to discuss here. First of all, we saw with the efficiency from a shooting standpoint, 24% from three. Not only is he inefficient, the shot isn't very pretty when he gets it off, and he's shown a pretty big unwillingness to shoot. We saw in one of our other draft profile videos that Matas Buzelis isn't the most efficient three-point shooter, but was always willing, was always confident. That's not the case, unfortunately, for Ron Holland here. Sometimes he'll pump fake even when he's wide open and try to go to a drive instead. He'll just hesitate. He's not just getting the ball catch and shoot setting. He's going to hesitate a little bit because he doesn't really want to shoot the ball. That is definitely a little bit of concern. You can work on it. There are some things you can work on for his shooting, but the fact that right now he's unwilling, again, it's definitely a concerning size. When it comes to shot creation as a whole, we also have some issues here. He can get some separation, but not super often, not as often as you would like. It's pretty much just limited to straight line drives, transition looks right now. Like, he can get his shots off, not to the consistent degree that you would like, especially for a player that you're going to be looking at in potentially the top 6 of the draft. And if it is the Raptors, it has to be a top 6 pick. So again, a little bit to be desired over there. He is decently strong, but can definitely fill out a little bit more. I'm not ultimately concerned about this that much because he's still very young, not even 19 years old yet. So as his body fills out, as he continues to get older, but continues to put on muscle, this shouldn't be a problem. Has the frame to fill out. Just right now, it's something to consider in the weakest category. One of the things I already alluded to was the decision-making for the player, which leads to turnovers, which leads to difficulties in playing in a half-court offensive set. It is very turnover-prone, averaged over 3 turnovers per game, not a good assist-to-turnover ratio, and, a bit of it is handling. Like, it's decent in open space, but in tight half-court settings, not the best. His passing, he's been labeled, he's not selfish. He's been labeled as that, but he has a bit of a willingness to be a playmaker, but he's just not that good at it. Doesn't read the game particularly well. Doesn't have the greatest of court vision. So it can put him into some tight spots with a little bit of tunnel vision on offense, and that just leads to turnovers. That leads to some poor offensive sets. That's just going to have to improve 100%. And along with the decision-making, that kind of spills over on the defensive end as well with the off-ball defense. Sometimes he can fall asleep defensively, miss out on rotations. That's an area that would need to improve definitely for the Raptors. So what sort of player can we liken him to the most as far as the NBA is concerned? Well, I think that the best way to describe his game at the moment is comparing him to RJ Barrett. This is a pretty exciting one for Raptors fans. I may have spoiled it for you already with the thumbnail that you saw, but RJ Barrett is a great comparison to what Ron Holland could be in the NBA. Look, RJ Barrett's not the most creative of players when he's slashing and driving to the rim, but he's effective at getting to the spots that he wants to get to. He's not the most athletic guy. He's not the strongest guy, but can get to those spots. Think of Ron Holland as a player who's a more athletic version of what RJ Barrett is offensively. Now, RJ Barrett has developed a very nice three-point game seemingly for the Raptors. We'll see if that comes eventually for Ron Holland. Again, he is very young. There's a lot of ways to go here, but in terms of the way he plays, slashing on offense, and does well in the open floor in transition, there are a lot of parallels that I can take from RJ Barrett to Ron Holland, although Ron Holland does possess the better on-ball traits defensively. Maybe some similarities as well to the off-ball defense, as I've said, with the weaknesses already for the players. So, is this a good fit for the Raptors? Is this a good player for the Raptors to take in this position? Well, the Raptors are in need of a big wing defender. And Ron Holland was initially pegged as somebody who was more of a defensive first sort of prospect. Does possess a lot of good abilities on offense, but the best qualities the player has already does showcase somebody who can trend very highly on defense. If the problem on defense is the decision-making or falling asleep, lack of concentration, that's something that I absolutely have a great degree of confidence is going to correct itself in the NBA or be corrected by NBA coaches at the higher level. I think there is potential to have an outstanding defensive prospect here with Ron Holland, and it's definitely fitting a need for the Raptors on that end of the floor. On the other end of the floor, is it the best to bring in somebody who doesn't trend very highly upwards as a shooter? Could develop a good three-point shot for the NBA level. Not super convinced about that aspect there. And because of the maybe lack of good decision-making, vision, you could want to go in a different direction if you are the Raptors here. What he can bring to you is that I think he trends very high as a more so role player. Not so much as the lead option as a role player, as a cutter, more off ball and getting himself to the rim. I think that's where you can really see Ron Holland thrive. It's just a question of if this is the right amount of talent to take in the top 6 for the Raptors, because that's where he's likely to end up here. And there has to be a question about maybe the fit as well. You know, obviously we're going to be prioritizing talent over fit in this position 100%, but I don't really think that talent is going to be there for Ron Holland for the Raptors to want to select him top 6. Look, if you have the 8th, 9th, 10th pick, I think that this is a wonderful player to take a stab on. But for somebody who doesn't maybe fit the best for the Raptors because he doesn't have that three-point shot and because there's probably going to be better players available if the Raptors do get the lottery luck, this is somebody that I can absolutely see the Raptors development team, front office, Masai Ujiri, Bobby Webster really liking and really wanting to work with. So it wouldn't shock me if his name is called for the Raptors on draft day. But personally, I feel like this pick could be better served going in a different direction. But what do you think about Ron Holland? I've seen him as a pretty popular candidate for the Raptors in the comment section on the channel. Would you want the Raptors to select him? Let me know in the comment section on this video down below. That's all for me for today. Drop a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel for more Raptors content, especially leading up to that draft lottery. Tune into our watch party as it happens live to see where the Raptors end up. And I'll see you again next time here for another video as well.